time now for all the latest business. For that, I'm pleased to say we're joined by Kate Moody. How are you, Kate?
Very well, and you, Mark?
Good to see you. Starting with a major blow to the Eurozone's recovery. Do tell us more.
Well, recovery across the Eurozone and economic growth ground to a halt in the second quarter of this year. After 12 months of weak expansion, the European Commission said that gross domestic product across the 18-member currency bloc was flat between April and June. That's compared with growth of 0.2% at the beginning of the year. Inflation across the zone also fell to 0.4%. That's the lowest rate we've seen in 4.5 years. Now, this has led analysts and economists to increase their calls for action by the European Central Bank. Many want the ECB to follow the lead of the US Federal Reserve and start a program of quantitative easing or large-scale buying of bonds. They hope that would add liquidity to the financial system and boost momentum. They're pointing, for example, to the US economy, which also struggled to get out of recession, but as you can see there, recorded a surprising growth rate of 4% for the second quarter. Now, some of the Eurozone's smaller economies did post some growth. Both Spain and Portugal grew at a pace of 0.6% and the Netherlands at a pace of 0.5%. But it wasn't enough to offset disappointing performances from the bloc's largest economies, with Germany and Italy slipping back into contraction and France holding at zero. Luke Brown takes a look at the Eurozone's so-called engines of growth and why they've stuttered to a halt.
Flatlining in France. For the second straight quarter, the French economy stuck at 0% growth, disappointing results for the socialist government.
The reality is not what was forecast. It's a lot worse. So I'm revising the forecasts and all of the budgetary elements linked to growth.
The French state forced then to plan for growth of 0.5% this year, half of what was expected. Another consequence of France's stagnant economy, Paris missing its EU objective to cut deficit to 3.8% of GDP. The bad data also coming from the other side of the Rhine, in Germany. Europe's most powerful economy stuttering, shrinking 0.2% in the second quarter. Germany's contraction in part sparked by uncertainty over the conflict in Ukraine. Many analysts, though, judge Germany's underlying economy to be strong, with growth forecast at 1.7% for the year, leaving it healthier than France.
Failing to respect its deficit engagements could put France in a delicate position towards Germany, which has fulfilled its promises and already made its adjustments when it comes to public deficits and even unemployment, as they approach full employment.
Across Europe, the situation is uneven. Progress in Spain as well as Eastern Europe wiped out by the results in France and Germany. That leaves the Eurozone also with growth stuck at 0%. After 6 years of crisis, the economic hangover in the EU continues to undermine the recovery.
Now, the European markets proved surprisingly resistant to that disappointing data. Shares dipped early in the session but rebounded on signs of a possible easing of tensions in Ukraine. London's FTSE led the way, closing up about 0.4%. The DAX and CAC 40 with more modest gains, but still ending the day in the green. Wall Street followed that positive trend, the major indices there all closing up. This despite the Labor Department saying that more Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week. Those applications still remain near levels that were last seen before the financial crisis and recession. Turning to some of the day's other business headlines now, Portugal's Constitutional Court has partially approved new austerity measures, giving the government more leeway to reduce the budget deficit. The court said salary cuts for public workers, which would save nearly 800 million euros a year, could take effect this year and next because of exceptional circumstances, but not through 2018 as the government had hoped. The court also rejected a measure that would cut pensions to raise extra revenues. General Electric has confirmed it's considering selling its trademark appliance division to focus on more complex and profitable industrial equipment. It's in discussions with the Swedish appliance maker Electrolux. GE said earlier this year it hoped to sell $4 billion worth of its business. The appliance division, which produced the first electric toaster more than a century ago, had a profit margin of just 5.7% last year. And Berlin has banned the ride-sharing service Uber and threatened the firm with a €25,000 fine for non-compliance. Authorities cited safety concerns, saying they couldn't allow passengers to risk riding in cars that hadn't been properly vetted. The San Francisco-based company has faced growing opposition around the world, mostly from taxi drivers who say the mobile app threatens their business. And finally, if you're someone who's addicted to your mobile phone, you've probably spent some time charging it at an airport. Now, Samsung is trying to take advantage of a perceived weakness in its greatest rival, which is the Apple iPhone, which many users complain has limited battery life. As you can see there, Samsung is placing advertisements for its own long-life batteries near power outlets in airports in New York and Chicago, with the tagline, "The power to be anywhere but here," that is, anywhere but squatting next to your charger in an airport. It's part of a broader ad campaign that's targeting wall huggers, which is what Samsung calls iPhone users who have to recharge a lot. They're trying to increase their share of that lucrative phone market there. Mark, have you ever charged your phone at an airport?
Kate, as you were saying that, I was smiling. James Creedon on the other side of the studio was smiling too.
Wall
yes,
huggers.
definitely, yes. Long life battery would be a very welcome thing. Kate, thank you very much. And stay with us because James did something that might make you smile. A photo going viral of the French finance minister, Michel Sapin, who Kate was just talking about a few moments ago.
That's right. The figures are not good, as Kate was telling us earlier, and indeed an unfortunate image to accompany those unfortunate figures. This is Michel Sapin posing for the SIPA press agency on holidays. It appears in the rain because he has his hood up at one point. This is in l'Île de Yeu,